Hey, hello again, everybody. Dan John here from danjohnuniversity.com. Welcome to episode 109 of the danjohnuniversity.com podcast. Can't believe it's that many. I've had a wonderful time here in England, and I'm just getting ready to go, but I want to make sure I got the podcast done because if you know me, you know I believe in a thing called shark habits. One bite and they're gone. And so I'm taking care of this. I am very impressed with the number of people I've met who've been using like the workout generator on the site. I've gotten some really good feedback about the generator. And here's the interesting thing. Mostly it's like, I wish I'd have done this more. It's like, okay. So, and I agree. I wish we'd have had the tools that we have now when I was young. I mean, just YouTube alone. I mean, that there are times when, I'll wonder about what a discus thrower's technique was like. And back when I was young, you'd find a picture and then you try to figure it out from there. And now you can watch a bunch of throws and get some ideas. And it's amazing, really. So yeah, please don't forget the Dan John University. We have the great generator and we've got the great forum. I met a couple members of our forum. Hats off to Will, great guy. The only thing is, when I met Will, I didn't know that he was that guy on the forum. So when you do introduce yourself to me and you're on the forum, be sure you tell me what your name is and let me know, because then I can, like I told him, I can put two and two together. I'll be home. I'll be home as I'm doing this. I'll be home very soon. It'll be nice. I could use some time with my dog. I've got some grandchildren. I'm sure they miss me. Maybe not, but here we go. We got some good questions this week. Our first question is from Sean, and Sean asked something that's interesting, because Sean, if you read the book Easy Strength, you'll see that Pavel believes in what you asked. He says, how would you adjust Easy Strength if you only had 3 days to train? Well, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, you would do the workouts. And this is what Pavel believed. I like the extra 2 days because I like more frequency than a lot of people, because I'm an Olympic lifter. I'm a thrower, and repetition is the mother of implementation. So the more often you can do something, the changes would be, I would say, almost nil, except you're probably going to have a different set of adaptations. So you might notice that you might have compared to the way I do it, and I'm not saying I'm better or worse, rich or poor. I'm just saying that the way I do it, I don't make huge jumps from day to day to day to day as you go through. Things kind of, it's always trending up, but it's kind of slight. Where the people who do it 3 days a week tell me that they get that big bounce. So really, I don't see any issues with it. I think it'll be fine. Okay. Jason has a question, and it's a different kind of question. I don't know if you're calling us out. Whenever strength coaches or professionals talk about the old-timey strongmen, Sando, Pandor, Professor Attila, they always seem to skip their promotions of the light dumbbell system, training with 5-7-pound dumbbells. Was the system just for commercial gain, or does it actually work? And how would you incorporate it? Well, honestly, though, if you think about when I preach heavy hands, it's very similar. With the advent of modern barbells, modern equipment, and the work of Tom DeLorme with progressive resistance exercise, somebody told me one time they do this mobility thing 1,000 repetitions a day, and I'm like, when do you have time for little things like your family, your friends, your life, your career? I know that you can get some value out of it. I know that Sven Dvorak has those nice little light dumbbell things where you do, maybe up to 20 different exercises in a circuit with a light dumbbell. I don't know if it's 5 or 7 pounds. I really don't know off the top of my head. And it seems to be good for general conditioning, but, if you want to throw something far, I don't know if it's enough load. I can't really answer the question, put it in a system, because I never would. What I would suggest you do is something like go in, get your heavy load in, and then do those high rep things, and just see how it goes. But if you're doing, what was the one program I saw? It was on one of the, it was in one of the sites one time. It might have been a book I read where the person had you doing, the strongman had you doing, it had to have been 12 or 15 exercises, and I think you start off with a jaunty 20 reps, and you build up to 50, and you build up to 100 or something like that. I just think 100 reps of the dumbbell clean and press. I don't know. That seems like a lot of work with not a lot of load. That's my opinion. I would, if you try it and you find out it's the best thing you ever did, good, because we've learned a lot. We have a question from Enrique. Enrique says, physical standards have changed a lot through history, and in a video by Mark Wildman, he compared ancient statues to modern bodybuilding standards. He expressed that in the ancient Greece and other civilizations, statues have big triceps, a not super big chest. The chest, yes, you're right, because the chest is the big pec thing is very modern. It truly is, yeah. And big obliques from stabilization due to having to carry things and using heavy weapons. Do you think this is the case, and can you share your knowledge or thoughts on how ancient cultures trained or could have trained athletes and warriors? Whenever we talk about sculptures, it's always a reach. I know that Otto Arco was Rodin's model, and Rodin added a lot of that's the opposite. Right? He didn't chisel away a lot of marble. Okay, so a much easier way to get big is to not add mass, just don't chop away as much marble. I like this. I think you're on to an interesting discussion. But with my degree in history, I've seen a lot of statues, and I've gone to a lot of places. And statues, because they're such an expensive enterprise, you're not always going to get a real dumpy look. You're going to clean things up a little bit. I did like something you said here about the obliques and big obliques versus a big chest. I like that. That might be by itself something that worth having a discussion. Because I'm such a big fan of like the suitcase carry and the bear hug carries. This is a really interesting question, and I don't really have a perfect answer for you. But just remember, it's those movie stars who get pec implants or take a whole bunch of anabolics or, growth hormone, and then they get painted before the scene, literally painted before the scene, and they dry out before the scene. Just remember, art and what you can do day to day is going to be just a slight bit different. We have a question from Zach. Do you have any advice for making the move from a D1 college and strength conditioning setting into the Special Forces tactical sector? Any resources I should look into? Things that are the norm that wouldn't be in the tactical sector? Any do's or do nots from your experience? That's an interesting question. Yeah, you got to not. The first rule of Fight Club is you don't talk about Fight Club, I guess. In my work, we call that a quadrant 2 athlete, multiple things. There's a massive influence on, putting one foot in front of the other. Strength conditioning is different in that world. If you watch a show like Predator, that's not how most people look in that field. But pushing too many pencils is a scene that no one's ever going to forget. I'm a big fan of those things called lift and sprints for them. That's when you do like goblet squats followed by sprints, overhead squats followed by sprints, or sled pulls, or hills are even actually better, where you're training people the same way you would train an American football player or rugby player, with lots of different positions. Another good one is deadlift for 5, say, bear crawl, and then sprint. I love those little combinations. Really, a lot of it nowadays is rehab, and I guess this prehab thing that people talk about a lot. But the best thing that you can do is be a master of proper technique. As best you can, you want to underload and under rep people in that field, because they've got so many other things, but they're big engines, and all they want to do is go. I would just take good advice from that one commercial and stay in your lane, bro. You're a strength and conditioning coach, and you should focus on strength and conditioning. In my home library, I have a lot of things on this. There are places online that talk about it a lot. But, getting through like the ranger training or buds and seals or any of this selection stuff, so much of it is the exact antithesis of everything we would say as strength and conditioning coaches. The guy's going to live on 600 calories a day for 3 weeks, and they're expected to climb mountains and make rapid decisions with no food and no sleep in their head, because that's the job. So it is a little different. I like the question. I don't know where to go. Thank you. We have a question from Eli. When I was a child, I was a voracious reader. That sounds like a poem. Reading at least 50 books a year from ages 7 to 14. Inspired partly by your advice to read great books, I picked up the habit again at age 24 and read while I walk on the treadmill during lunch break. I have completed 7 books this year, ranging in subjects from training, Easy Strength, brilliant book, to Daniel Boone, to CIA, to hyenas. I was wondering if you ever published a list of books that you consider great. I know you love Dune and The Sword and the Stone, but I haven't heard you mention any others. If you were to make a list of books every man should read related to subjects, what would they be? You've got Dune, Sword and the Stone. I think The Godfather would go on that list personally. That's my own opinion. The Count of Monte Cristo is a book I would throw in there. And honestly, if you're going to read that, might as well read The Three Musketeers. Great. I just enjoyed both of those books, and I think they have great value. A good translation of Beowulf, though that might not be in your... Yeah, so the Beowulf, Epic of Gilgamesh, Genesis from the Bible. Those would be 3 I would, because they're such important fundamental stories of the Western tradition. This is actually a good question. I'm a big fan that you should read Shakespeare, or maybe go in and watch Hamlet, and then have an interesting discussion about the decision making he made, because he was asked to do something very difficult, and it's hard to do. I'm a big fan of Don Quixote Part 1. Mike Brown and I argue about this constantly, about Part 2. I did not like it, but I think Don Quixote Part 1 is essential reading for everybody. So we got, we got Sword and the Stone, Dune, The Godfather, probably Hamlet, throw in Macbeth, and enjoy a fun Midsummer's Night Dream. Don Quixote, interesting that Cervantes and Shakespeare probably died on the same day. I would say Dune, because I just love it. This is a good question. I like it. I like where your head's at. I'm sure there's some other books I haven't included from other traditions, but I am answering the question. Like, for example, I really enjoyed reading the Rig Veda and the Ramayana in college from the Indian tradition. I like that a lot. There's so many books, but that's a good start. One book I got a lot out of it that isn't as famous as, I think his name was William Dana, and it was 2 years before the Mast. I don't know what it was. Maybe it was when I read it, but it's a book from about 1850s. It's going to California before, it's real. I really enjoyed that book. That's a good start. I think maybe some good poetry is not a bad idea. I would say some of the poetry from the Irish of a century ago was pretty amazing. Just some ideas there. Thank you. Fun question. I actually appreciate that. Thank you. Thomas has a question. I am curious as to your thoughts on beginner 5x5 programs. I use 5x5 for beginners, but we build up to it. We go 8-6-4 for a couple of weeks, building up, a set of 8 followed by a set of 6 followed by a set of 4. And then from there, I would prefer you did something like a couple of days with heavier loads of like a 3x5. And then, so maybe, there you go. Maybe a week of 3x5, a week of 5x3, and then go into a 5x5. 5x5 is this great program. I mentioned this the other day at my workshop. If all you did was 5x5 military, 5x5 pull up with the weights, 5x5 front squat, 5x5 deadlift, and then go do some farmer walks, you'd have a pretty good program. I don't know if you do it very long, because that'd be really, really hard. But man, that'd be a good program. So those are my ideas. 8-6-4 to start with a beginner. 3 sets of 8 would probably be a good transition. 3 sets of 5, 5 sets of 3, 5 sets of 5, and probably every 6 workout be a 5-3-2 day where you try to go heavy on that last double. There you go. That's pretty simple. Thank you. Garrett asks us, I've been trying to get my dad to lose weight for a decade now to no avail. He drinks excess alcohol, diet sodas, fast food, sugar, and he hates the idea of fasting. Wow. He starts eating right after he wakes and doesn't stop until he's in bed. When I say I'm concerned about his health, he mentions his grandmother who lived to be 102. I can't even convince this 62-year-old man to try fasting, so calorie-restricted eating is definitely off the table. I am trying to turn a stuck axle wheel. For the coach in you, do you have any advice on how to help him? A coach is a vehicle that takes someone from A to B. If the person doesn't want to get on the bus, sadly, and I'm getting this 62-year-old, I mean, it's going to be, I know a young person who had a massive heart attack in their 30s, and that's when they started eating fresh, eating healthy, going for walks. I hope we don't have to get to that point with that massive health alert, but I got to tell you, it seems to be the most common way to get people to turn things around. I didn't say it was the best, but it does happen. 2, into the religious instructor inside of you. Am I a bad son if I give up trying? I don't think you give up loving him. I'm dealing with an issue with someone who's drinking to excess a lot, to the point that all kinds of issues are happening. And I just heard another story that this person was at an event drinking heavily and needed help getting home, and the person said, I thought you stopped drinking. And the person said, I am. I didn't drink tonight. And the person said, I watched you drink. And that's tough stuff, man. That's tough stuff. We have a phrase in discus throwing, horse water drink. Horse water drink. You can bring a horse to water, but you can't make him drink. No, you're a good son for asking the question. And all you can do is make sure your children have the model of you to follow in their life. Do what you can do, but don't blame yourself. I hope that helps. We have a question from Nicholas. I have a posture problem that I am aware of but cannot fix. When I stand, my knees are always locked and my weight is mostly on my heels. When I walk or run, I also tend to have a straight leg at impact, while good form requires, slightly bended knees. Any ideas how to improve? Oh boy, Nicholas, I'm going to do this. I'm going to ask you to see it. There's a couple things. You could do something as simple as the functional movement screen. Greg Cook's great work, Burton Cook's great work, Brett Jones. But this might be worth seeing a physio. Sorry, I'm in England. A physical therapist. With this combination, I'm wondering if it's, we're seeing it. Okay, we're seeing it when you run and we're seeing it when you stand. But what the cause of it might be something else. It could be something as simple as you don't have. Okay, this is not what it is. I'm just guessing. Not enough curve in your here and your lower back. Boy, that's not bad. Maybe you have stiff hips. Maybe you have, some kind of a unforgiven knee issue. But I would like you to do that. I'm not walking away from the question and abandoning you in the park or anything. I just think that there's more to this. I think there's more here than we think. I really do. I would like to have known how long you had it and a few other things, but I have a real good physical therapist, Mike. He's a wonderful guy, and I've gotten a few pieces of advice. Well, this isn't going to fix you, but with this long-term shoulder issue, he asked me this little drill. Here, let's look how complicated this is. That, and I must be doing better because it didn't go and crack. But a good physical therapist, a person with good hands, sometimes Mike told me to stop doing all the neck mobility because I've got some neck issues from American football and they're not going to get better. So let's quit tweaking them. I still do, obviously, mobility work, but I don't tweak it in certain ways. Maybe it could be something as simple, you might get that to whatever the rules could be. And in a few weeks, you're going to feel a lot better. Gosh, I hope that helps. Hey, it's been an interesting podcast. I felt like a lot of the questions were different and new, but a lot of them were kind of outside the norm, and I appreciate that. And I think I need to follow up on some of this maybe down the line. These were very good questions, but they were a little different, which I appreciate. Listen, if you have a question, send them to podcast@danjohnuniversity.com. And as always, I'll do my best to answer each and every one. I appreciate everything you guys do for me. Remember, too, that I have the forum at Dan John University, and a lot of the questions you ask, we have people sending videos in there, so it's not just my eyeballs looking on you. And sometimes it's community that'll help with some of the issues I'm reading here this week. The question about books and the question about statues really kind of are interesting. And to me, that's the kind of question I want to see on a forum. What are the books that an educated person should read? And then some example of statues and this discussion go farther. I guess that's why I like intentional community, when people come together with intention and share and talk about things. By gosh, this was a good episode. And thank you so much, and we'll see you next week.